Geeta, if you could really give us the difference. You're saying that Indians could be ill-treated or not treated on power with the local workers there. What's really the difference? In what sense do you say that Indians have substandard living conditions, that they're cramped into buildings? We hear that the building that was built where these Indians were staying is also part owned by an Indian.
Well, absolutely. And let's just look at the difference. One, if you looking at West Asia and the Arab world, most of the locals no longer are part of the labor force. They actually are so well-to-do now that most of the labor force come from countries like India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Nepal, and of which Pakistan, Bangladesh constitute a lot of the labor force, but a lot of them come from down south in the Gulf, in West Asia, or what we call, or what the Western world calls Middle East. And if you look at the kind of conditions, the pay parity to begin with, the pay parity where the Indian labor force or Pakistani, Bangladeshi, any country from this part of the world is paid way less than if it were their own people. And certainly we don't see labor force from the developed world. So it is either them, the locals, or from this part of the world. And locals in those countries are far reduced now in number when it comes to blue-collar jobs. They all outsource these jobs to labor force from this part of the world. Although when it comes to pay, they go there in need for jobs, but also because they earn a lot more than they would have in their own countries. Whether it's India, whether it's Bangladesh, Nepal, they earn a lot more when it comes to pay. So pay parity when it comes to their own country versus the Arab world could be higher. They save a lot more because of the conditions that they live in, cramped up. And even if they choose to, Nabila, it should not be allowed because they all are trying to save some money. And over there in West Asia, in the Middle East, if you're looking at these countries, there have to be certain standards that should be maintained. It's not just about pay parity; it's about the treatment meted out to these workers as well. It's certainly not at par with how they treat their own. There are a lot of cases that I personally deal with, and we then take it up with the Ministry of External Affairs that such and such person is in trouble. His passport has been confiscated. He's being ill-treated. He wants to return. There is no way of returning because there is some guarantee money that they take, and they need to work till that money that they owe to the employer is paid for. So it is actually quite not just an unhealthy way of working and functioning. That's actually bonded labor to a large extent. So the larger question over here is that will the Indian administration now sit down with these countries and change the rules of the game? You want employees, you want employment you want Indian labor force to go and work in West Asia, in your country, then you better have these standards, which is pay parity, standard of living, where do they live, what are the working conditions. You cannot hold them against their will. If they want to leave, their passports cannot be confiscated and kept by these employers or sheikhs. So there has to be that parity. The Indians who have gone there and built a life for themselves and partner with these employers only know this. They don't know better because they themselves have gone through the same drill. So everything now has to be rewired to know that Indian labor force, one, doesn't come cheap, and it doesn't come without respect. The respect and honor of allowing people the space to leave when they want to, work in a certain way and have decent living conditions should just be basic. And that's what this Kuwait incident, which we've not seen in a long time, Nabila, we've not seen such an incident where so many Indians have lost their lives and so many others severely injured or suffering severe burn injuries admitted in hospital. So it is a wake-up call. We've been reporting about this. I have been reporting about this. Our network has been reporting about this. Every time we see such a case of Indians languishing somewhere in the Arab world. But now it is time for the Indian government to wake up and reconfigure those rules of the game when it comes to employment and workforce, Indian workforce in the Middle East.
Right. You know, Geeta, and like you said, Indians also come with skill, great skill. You have most of these people who've died. You have blue-collared workers, you did mention, but should I point out, many of them engineers who were staying in that building and who've died. You have a project manager, you have a consultant, you have a driver, you have a project engineer, all of them living together in that same building. So it's all levels of employees who were put together, or literally dumped in that one housing complex. And we hear there were Indians, there were Bangladeshis, Nepalis, Egyptians, Philippines, a mixed bag of people and nationalities, all in one housing complex, nearly 200 of them, which was highly cramped according to Kuwait standards. But then what happened to Kuwait authorities, civic authorities not checking if violations were committed, not ensuring that these buildings have proper fire exits or fire safety alarms. Those safety nets weren't checked if they were in place or not. So it's surely to be the Kuwait authorities also to be blamed here.
Well, in many ways, then, Nabila, the Kuwaiti authorities are to be blamed, but because these are the living conditions that have been provided for years, for decades. It's not new. Everybody knows that that there are colonies after colonies where Indians, Bangladeshis, Pakistanis, Sri Lankans, they all stay cramped in buildings, in rooms, and there is nothing that has been done about that. So it is not new. It is something that has been happening for years. But again, like I go back to the whole idea and point of now how both governments should be working towards ensuring safe living conditions. Even if they're not absolutely decent, the basic, the most standard should be safe living conditions. And if this is not priority, then there has to be a rethink on how workforce should be sent to West Asian countries. So, and you know, Nabila, with this incident in Kuwait, a lot of other countries will now start looking at working conditions of Indians in their own countries, because it is quite abysmal, and they need to start looking into it, because should there be an incident in any other country, I do not think that the Indian administration is going to take it very lightly. We do know that, you know, the government has prioritized safety of Indian diaspora, concerns of Indian diaspora abroad, and they have looked at how to make life better for them. This certainly is not part of that entire safety for Indian diaspora architecture, and if the Indian government wants to look and seem serious about providing that safety net for Indian diaspora abroad, they need to start working on this front. We have been talking about it for way too long. It's been decades that I've been reporting on safety for Indians in West Asia, the fact that they're ill-treated, the fact that there is no accountability, the fact that there is no place that they can go to for justice. Many of them for months languish in or are taken captive in the employer's residence, many of them in jails, because it's very easy to file complaints against these Indian workers and put them behind bars. So there has to be a relook on how these countries treat Indian workers.